Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Kareen Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Kareen.
To the Secret Keepers podcast. And today I have Char Dienes, and Char is a fellow neuroencoder. And I'm just going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I have been so excited about this event with you and speaking to you and your listeners. I really believe that I have been downloaded an inspirational, impactful um, word that will ignite everybody. So I'm excited. My name is Char, but I'm also a federal chaplain. I am a functional medicine certified coach. I'm also a ketone technology optimization coach. I've written a monk fruit sweetener cookbook for
Oh,
type 2
cool.
diabetics. And I'm also a behavior modification nutritional health coach. So, what does that all mean? It means that I am able to help you with your limiting beliefs of why you are self sabotaging with food. I write meal plans for
Mhm.
you. And as a functional health certified coach, we delve deep inside to figure out what's going on with you at a molecular level, a cellular level, to see. We'll have your blood work done and affordably, and we'll dig individually of what your needs are and then design a plan for you. So
Well,
that's
that is so awesome. And that is, first of all, that's loaded in all the different things that you do. So, in order to help people really understand what it is you do, because there's all those titles, and then there's the you, that's Shar. So I want to just dig into that a little bit, Shar, because I want to
okay.
talk a little bit about what brought you to all those different titles. What was it?
All right. So I'm going to share with you, Kareen, that a couple of things I've never shared, not even in
Mm,
neurocoding. So you are going to be the specific person that I'm going to open up to.
mm,
Um, I grew up in a very wealthy environment. My father was a very famous songwriter in Nashville. And so there wasn't anything that I lacked growing up. However, with that being said, there was a lot of abuse behind closed doors and
mm.
things that happened that really messed with my own personal identity and psyche. And I actually ended up not wanting to be around men at all because of what happened. And the trauma led me to a lot of anger. That was the first trauma. The
Okay.
second trauma was when my mother died on my 16th birthday. Now, all
Mm,
these stepping
mm.
stones started carving out holes, black holes, like in a galaxy. Just started, you know, multiplying. When my mother died, I became I think that's when my food addiction started a
Okay.
little, a little bit.
Sure.
But my father was such a severe generational type 2 diabetic, like his mother, who had his legs amputated, and I didn't
Oh,
want it.
wow.
So I decided that health was going to be my wealth early on. And even though I was a little out of control with eating, I rock climbed, I hiked, I was very active. And I graduated from college at 18. I had graduated high school early after my mother died, which led me into a beautiful career. And I was a private duty nurse that traveled all over the United States.
Uh-huh.
And then I had the opportunity to be on a $10 million yacht taking care of a cancer patient, and we sailed around the world.
That's exciting.
That was huge. I didn't know it at the time, but it was pivotal of where I am today. He had
So,
left me in his will. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, that's how so. I'm just wondering, like, how that was so pivotal for you.
I threw myself so much into taking care of my patients, but never dealing with the loss of my mom, never dealing with the abuse of my father and his friends.
Okay.
And so my self-worth, this is like pivotal, my self-worth was wrapped into me taking care of other people.
Sure.
So we lived in Greece for 3 years and I loved it. And I never dated, didn't want to. And at that juncture, when my patient passed away, I didn't know he was going to leave me in his will. So when he
Okay.
did, I was so close with the family. It was like losing my mother all over again.
Mm,
And I crashed. All of us have lost somebody, a child, a sibling, a parent, a
sure.
patient. Us nurses, I have a good friend who works hospice, and I don't know how she does it, 'cause you get so close and so attached. So I went back home to Michigan and I took some respite, some time for myself. And that's where the work started, where I
Okay.
started to heal. I had been asked to foster an adult group home, like they were going on vacation, the owners, and they asked me to watch their group home while they were gone. I loved it. Corrine, I loved it. It was MRDD
So cool.
population. And when they got back, they decided to sell it, and I bought it.
Okay.
And I did that for 10 years, and I ended up having the most amazing career. Well, in between that time, an old high school friend told me he was in love with me and
Oh,
had been his whole life and would I consider dating him. Well, it took me 2 years, but we did get married. And we decided we wanted a child of our own.
sure.
And so by this time, we owned 3 group homes, 36 residents. I was a go-getter, had to organize, very organized. I also worked for the state of Michigan in the licensing bureau because a lot of group homes, they would have infractions. They wouldn't be in compliance with their licensing rules and regulations for adult foster care. So, and the last thing I did when I got pregnant, I was a hospital administrator. That
Okay.
was the third and final blow that knocked me to my knees. I was walking by a patient's room and my nurses yelled out, "Char, help us." And I should have called a code, but I didn't.
Okay.
And like doctors, firefighters, police, I ran into that room to help them as they lost control of the patient and he fell backwards on top of me, breaking my back in 7 places and killing my unborn son.
Ugh,
I was screaming, not from pain, because I didn't have any pain. My back was broken.
sure.
I knew my son was gone. I
Yeah.
knew. I didn't get to go to his funeral, so I had no closure there. And the person that you know now, the one that
Hmm.
smiles and is full of joy,
Mm,
became a shell of a woman. There was no joy. I never smiled. I lived that way for 18 years. And that food addiction that started when my mother died,
Sure.
full force, full force.
Oh,
I went from
yeah.
160 pounds to 415.
Oh,
Now
that's
I'll be giving you some pictures to show your viewers.
yeah,
Wheelchair.
415 pounds.
Um,
Like, I mean, I think about that, right? Because when you put that in a perspective in as to what this addiction look like, because I think sometimes we can flip words around, right? We can be flippant with words and say, oh, I'm addicted to this, and not necessarily mean that word. But what you're speaking to right now is legit food addiction, because this was a compensation, right? A compensation for the grief that you were so deeply carrying within your body. So carry on. I was like, what
no,
just,
that's great insight. It wasn't just the grief, though. Crean, it was such deep resentment and self-loathing. And
sure.
in my head, I was continually playing a movie. What a bad mom you would have been. You, it's a
Oh,
good thing your son died because you're horrible.
mm,
You didn't protect him when you should have.
sure.
You chose to protect the patient. So here I'm all the self-loathing, grief, unforgiveness. I couldn't forgive myself. And then compound that my husband divorced me when I was in the nursing home for 3 years. You compound abandonment
Mm,
on top of it.
sure.
So once I got out of the nursing home, I had free reign to go to the fridge anytime I wanted to. And let me tell you, I could eat. By that time, I had stretched my stomach out so much that the only thing I could enjoy was the taste of food. I would eat a bucket of chicken. Hour later, go through Burger King. An hour later, I, you
Mhm.
always, excuse me, you always saw me eating. There was never a time, and people felt so bad for me. The loss of my marriage, the loss of, I had to sell the group
Mhm.
homes, the loss of my son, that they would ask, what can we do for you? How may we serve you? Oh, bring me this food, bring me that food. So I became a very manipulative person.
And I hear, right, I hear there's a lot of enabling, right? There's a lot of codependent behavior there in that they were, well, whatever you need, because, well, people genuinely want us to feel better.
Right. Yeah.
However, hello,
Yeah. They, and,
like,
and nobody ever said anything to me. Not one person. Should you be eating that, Char? Let's get you
yeah.
some help. Not one person.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sure because they don't want to add to what you're already experiencing. And so
Right.
people will tiptoe around it, and they're well-meaning, right? Because these people, they love us, they care about us. They're not like malicious in what they're
No.
doing. They're
Right.
just, maybe they even lacked an awareness of how much it was contributing to what was happening in your health.
Well, let's
But
talk
so
about the
many
health.
things there. Yeah, because I
Let's
was I
talk
was
about
gonna
the health.
say, because this obviously, when you talk about like the secrets that you kept, the secrets affected you physically, mentally,
Yes.
spiritually, emotionally. So we've got the whole ball of wax here.
Hmm.
And now you're at this state, you're at 415 pounds. And so what did that look like for your health?
Well, in the beginning of all this, I told you that I'm a chaplain. And as a
Hmm.
chaplain, as a faith-based believer, I believe that we are a triune being, just like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We have our mind,
Hmm.
we have our body, and we have our spirit. All
Hmm.
three were not in alignment. They were all broken. And so what it looked like was constant intensive care stays, kidney failure, renal, congestive heart failure, 2 strokes, um, nurses around the clock taking care of me, breathing apparatuses because I couldn't breathe on my own. I had oxygen for over 10 years. I had a catheter inside me. So it was constant care.
And you
And
said diabetes too, right?
type
Type
2,
2 diabetes.
like my father, like I didn't
Hmm.
want to be.
Yeah.
So type 2 diabetes, 6 insulin shots a day.
Wow.
There were times I'd be in intensive care. There was one time that it's documented. I have the paperwork. My blood sugar A1C was over 16, but at the time I was hospitalized, I was near 1,000 blood sugar.
I
And
don't,
there were
so just for us that don't necessarily have a reference to what those numbers mean, could you explain them a little bit?
absolutely. So people probably that they prick their finger to see what their blood
Hmm.
sugar is in the morning. Well, mine was almost 1,000. And
Okay.
A1C is a blood test that can be done that shows the average of what your blood sugar is for a 3-month period.
Okay.
Normal A1C would be around 5.0, 5.2.
Okay.
I was past 16.
Oh, wow. Okay. So like over 3 times the amount.
Diabetic
Okay.
neuropathy, the pins, the needles, the prickling, the shards of glass that you walk on, all of it. So I want to fast forward this because I know our time is
Yeah.
limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had become septic. And what that means is I had such poison throughout my body. I had an infection from the catheter that I had worn. People that wear catheters often get a lot of infections, either in urinary tract, bladder, and or kidney. My infection was so bad that I'm going to be graphic here. I literally had pus coming out.
Oh my
And they
goodness
said I
gracious.
wasn't not going to survive the night. Well, I did. And Corrine, I was angry. I was
Hmm.
tired. I was so tired. And I went to church when I got out of the hospital. And I went forward to the altar. And I says, okay, God, you and me, hard conversation. Let's have it. I go, God, I've dealt with, I'll never walk again. I am okay with that. But this grief is killing me.
Yeah.
I I need your help. And you've heard people talk where they've had a vision or they've had a conversation with God and they audibly hear him.
Sure.
That happened to me.
Mm,
I was no
okay.
longer in church. I was up in the clouds, and all of a sudden, this giant hand came down, and I knew it was God's. And he had my baby boy nestled in the palm of his hand.
Oh, that just gave me chilies.
And on his wrist was
Mm.
engraved my son's name, Michael.
Oh.
And right now, I'm showing you a hand
Mm.
carved wooden statue that my friend had an artist
Yeah.
in Italy do.
Okay. Very cool.
And my little boy, he says to me like an adult, but as a baby, he says, Mom, you didn't have me on earth, but you're going to have me up here for eternity. Let me go. Well, you better believe I'm weeping at this point. I
Oh,
mean,
that put chills through my whole body. Oh, yes.
gut
Oh
wrenching.
my goodness. Yeah.
And then he says, Mom, I'm up here with Moses and Noah in these clouds trying to cheer you on to run your race, but you're breaking God's
Mm.
heart and mine. You won't let us cheer. Let me go. And then he said the thing that broke me. And it broke me of the abuse of my dad, the abandonment with my husband. I mean, it broke me. He says, Mom, it was an accident. I forgive
Mm.
you. Forgive yourself. All the years of everything, my mom dying, it just started flowing out of me, and I'm just sobbing. I felt that gluttony leave when I audibly forgave myself, when I said, yes, it was an accident. I would have been a good mom. And I changed the narrative in my mind. I was
Absolutely.
transformed by the renewing of my mind. That's a scripture, Romans
Sure.
12:2. So
Mhm.
in this part, um, I rolled away in my power wheelchair, oxygen, catheter, knowing I was transformed, knowing I was changed. But I didn't tell anybody because I wanted my fruit to show. We can go out there and spew, I'm changed, I'm transformed, but if the
Mhm.
evidence isn't there,
Sure.
but I no longer went through Kentucky Fried Chicken and ate a bucket in 20 minutes. I mean, it was horrible. About 80 pounds down, my physical therapist saw my leg moving. They rushed me to the Cleveland Hospital Metro, and my spinal cord doctor, my pain management, they were all there. And they said, Char, nothing's changed. You're still not going to walk, but bravo on the 80 pounds down. Bravo. We
Yeah.
think that you've lost some pressure off your spinal cord and it's stimulating the nerves.
Mm.
And this was 2016. A month later, I took my first step. And my doctor was like,
Mhm.
this is a miracle. I've got it on tape, him saying that. And I've been on Everyday Miracles. I've been written up in National Geographic. I've been written up in medical journals, because there's just no
Sure.
way I should be walking. It took me 2 years to push. By 2018, I did my first 5K.
It's
But
amazing.
the difference was my mindset. The difference was,
Absolutely.
and I started working on that. I went straight to Bible college, graduated 2019, and then that's when everything took off. I started going to infant loss groups and churches, taking this
Mm.
little statue with me, quoting to people, whoever you've lost, I want you to hold that statue and envision them cheering you on to run your race.
Mhm.
But now the rest of the story, all that
Oh,
abuse. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to just interject here a little bit, because otherwise we'll get too far into it, and then I
Yeah.
won't remember all the questions I want to ask you.
Okay. Please, please.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay. So as you're going along, and and you hear these voices, what were, you said, like, it changed your eating habits, but so, like, immediately, you get this download, like, this voice is coming to you, and so now you're like, I really want to change my life, and you start to do it. So your first steps were just on your own changing your eating habits, or did you have somebody help you to do that?
Actually, I did it on my own to begin with.
Okay. Okay.
And
Very good.
my first
Yeah.
step was toward the bathroom because I was so tired and embarrassed of people wiping my tushy, you know,
Sure. Yeah.
and the freedom of being able to sit on a toilet and get back up by yourself
Sure.
is huge.
Right. And how amazing, right? Because you were like, we talk about the power, like the forgiveness, and you went through this process of saying, you know, by having your son tell you, Mom, I forgive you, you need to forgive you, to go through that forgiveness. That is, forgiving ourselves is the hardest person to forgive. We're really brutal to ourselves. We would
Yes, they are.
never treat other people that way.
Mm-mm,
I
mm-mm.
mean, I think I can only speak to being a woman because I'm a woman, but I know men who were, or are, super hard on themselves, that they don't feel like they're measuring up, or they're doing all the right things. They're not making enough money. They don't look, maybe they lost their hair. They don't look this way or that way. And they spend a lot of time, right? You talk to you more than anybody else talks to you. And so in there, that critic's voice is just always shouting at you. And you're like, hey, wait a minute. I get to forgive me, and I'm going to do this thing. And you, Miss Nancy, are going to sit in the back seat and shut your
Mhm.
mouth, and we're going
Yep.
to just drive on. And so then you went from there, and you did more. So I'll let you continue on your story.
Well, let me address the men that are listening to
Okay.
this.
Mhm.
All right. So when I forgave my husband for divorcing me, it replaced that abandonment with absolute empathy because it never dawned on me. He lost his wife. He lost his son too. He lost the group homes. We lost everything together. He was
Yeah.
hurting. He was hurting.
Yeah.
And after I forgave myself and I forgave him, we became the best of friends. Best of friends.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah,
Very
healing is,
therapeutic.
it really is.
Mhm.
So at that juncture, I graduated Bible College 2019. They asked me to stay on and teach. And I did for a while. Then COVID hit. What I didn't tell you was because of all the abuse of food, I did so much damage to my stomach, so
Mm.
much damage. And with the gastroparesis, which is a diabetic ailment, with pancreatitis, with all the things I had, there was so much damage.
Mm.
I had surgery and they measured my stomach. Now, our stomachs should be our fist, okay?
Right. Hmm.
Mine was elongated, and I want you to imagine it was 16 inches long.
Wow.
I stretched it out that bad. And so all the pain that I was in, I could not eat normal food anymore. I had to have pureed food. I was always throwing up. But you know what? I had my joy back. I had my peace back. I had my
Hmm.
mental health back. I even went back to work, you know?
Amazing.
And so I ignored that I was living off of anti-nausea. So then
Okay.
I got breast cancer
Oh,
and
okay.
22
Wow.
and right in the height of COVID. Survived that. And I'm telling you, Corrine, it was amazing because I went to my doctor in July of 21 and I says, I can't live like this anymore. I can't live throwing up. I would like, what can I do? Now, I'm not here to talk about the ketones I drink or the electrolytes I
Hmm.
drink. However, they need to be put in here because they changed my digestion. So my doctor told me about two friends of his, Dr. Lowry and Dr. Wilson, who created the only bioidentical ketone on the market. And he wanted me on them. And I had reached a point of 140 pounds lost, but I couldn't lose any more. So I started drinking the ketones and the electrolytes, and I broke that plateau of 140 pounds. I'm now 260 pounds lost. And I just,
Released, right? Released.
yes, I
Yeah.
totally released.
Yeah.
And so I got so excited that I went down to Kentucky and I was thanking Dr. Lowry and Dr. Wilson, and they asked me to share my testimony worldwide. That is when I met Dr. Joseph McClendon III,
Mhm.
neuropsychologist. Now, I
Mhm.
had lived underneath a rock for 18 years. I didn't know who he was, but all these people were screaming over him, you know?
Mhm.
But I had the opportunity to be in a private room with him because the
That's
private doctors
awesome.
wanted me to talk to him. And I guess I left him speechless because when he came out on stage to do his neuroencoding and be happy and I can get you further faster and
Yeah.
uh, what you think is what you feel and what you feel is what you do and what you do, that's what you're going to have.
Yeah.
And so he's out on the stage and he's like, why do you freaks come and see me all the time? Well, we love you, Joseph. And he goes, no, I just met a lady outside that left me speechless. And then all of a sudden, my picture of me in the wheelchair and my current picture was up. And he said, this is why I do what I do. I want to
Mm.
create a legacy and a ripple effect where you
Yeah.
go out and you transform lives. And and then I came up there and gave my testimony. And it was the door that opened that brought everything full circle
Yeah. I hear
because
that. Yeah.
Joseph wanted me to learn neuroencoding to help the child that was being abused by a parent or a sibling or the sexual abuse. He wanted me to be able to um, guide people out of their eating addictions and find their purpose and their calling. And
Hmm.
then, so he offered me a scholarship, and I went to neurocoding, and best thing I ever did. Best thing
Sure.
I ever.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because you met me there, of
that
course, right?
absolutely not only you, but the friends that we have formed
Yeah. Yeah.
through this unity, this family. So
Yeah. We've seen it all too, haven't we? As far
we have.
as like, I think that that's the most incredible piece of it, right? Is because every single one of us has a different story, and we all have the desire, right, to make impact and to leave the legacy. Legacy was something that I was introduced to by John Maxwell.
Oh, I love him.
And right, and when I did my table talk, when I became a certified member of the John Maxwell leadership team, is what it's called, but it's not John Maxwell team back then. Um, you had to, you do a table talk, and you have to pick from the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership,
Oh,
and
love
mine
that.
was legacy, and at that point I had lost my dad and my
Mm.
brother both to substances, and so I was on a mission of wanting to help people change their lives as well. Mine just might look a little bit different, but the whole healing of generational trauma and really understanding, but going even further, like, I can relate to your story because food was my drug of choice. I didn't choose alcohol and I didn't choose opiates the way my brother did,
Mm.
but I chose food, and I watched my mom use food, and so it's a very real thing, right? And it's something that's widely accepted, right? It seems to be okay if we have a food addiction, but not so okay if we have a drug addiction,
Right.
um and which is fascinating. But anyway, so legacy and impact and wanting to, that's the whole reason for this podcast, is wanting to help people change their lives and help them see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that they too can change their lives,
Well
and
said.
that all the techniques, right, there's stuff out there for everybody,
And it's not just
right?
brain health. There's not just brain health.
Right.
Now that I've really educated myself and became
Hmm.
a functional medicine certified coach and ketone coach, what does that mean? What it means is 36 type 2 diabetics in the last 12 months are off of insulin because of the protocol that I designed for them. And I do not charge. I do not
Wow.
charge anyone to work with me because I have a passion and God keeps on giving me divine appointments. May I tell you a quick little story? I know
Absolutely. Yeah.
uh,
We're getting, yeah,
uh,
we're
so this happened to me at the near the end of 2023. I was traveling and I got a nail in the tire. So I called Mark Wahlberg Chevrolet and I'm like, can I come in, please? I need to fix my tire. Sure, sure. Here sits a 450-pound, very young man in his 20s. Oh,
wow.
Kareem, my heart just went crunch, you know,
Yeah.
because I remember the swollen lymphatic legs. My legs used to be 56 inches around. Now they're 14. And that's a non-scale victory. That's huge that my lymphatic is now working. So I sat down and just started chit-chatting. And I go, may I show you a picture? And I showed him the picture I sent you
Okay.
of the before and after. And
Yeah.
he looks at me and he says, that's no way that that's you. And I said, yeah. And I go, it is. I'm healthier now at age 61 than I was at 33. And he says, wow, that's wow. And I said, so now you have a choice. I can respect your
Hmm.
boundaries and not say another word. or I can share my testimony and let you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, please, I want to hear it. So I
Mm.
told him basically some of the things we've talked about. And he was weeping right there in the middle of the dealership. And he goes, do you believe in divine appointments? And I go, absolutely. And he
Heck yeah.
says, I'm not supposed to be here. And I go, what do you mean? And he says, well, I went to one of those instant oil changes and they put the wrong oil in my car. And I go, I'm not supposed to be here. I just got a nail in my tire. And I go, I
Oh, I
believe
got
that God
goosebumps.
ordained this just for you. And
Yeah.
he didn't care who was sitting around. He was weeping. He
Mm.
goes, I have a 6-year-old son that I can't even get on the floor and play with.
Mm.
I have heart palpitations all the time,
Sure.
and I'm only 26 years old. He says, I'm getting married in a year, and I want to be healthy for my wife and my new life.
Yeah.
He goes, but there's one more thing. And I go, what's that? And he said, can you help my mom?
Okay.
And I go, what do you mean? And he said, let's talk generational. He
Right.
says, my mom is over 600 pounds. She was on
Mm.
my 600-pound life and they rejected her because she couldn't do it. Can you help her too? I
Yeah.
am still to this day working with both of them. And
It's
it's
something people
amazing.
forget,
Yes.
right? They
And
forget that it's that their children are watching.
yes,
Like we just
that's what
don't
I was just
think
going to
about it,
say.
right? Because we're so knee deep into it. We're so entrenched in our own stories, right? You know, this is the story, and I keep repeating the story, and it goes over and over in my head, and so then I keep putting the food in my mouth, and then the cycle continues because now the self-loathing continues because
Yes.
every time I do it, and I can speak to this emphatically because I watched it with my dad with the drinking. He
Mm-hmm.
would get drunk, he would become belligerent, he would say all these horrible things to us. And then the next day, he wouldn't even know what he did. And then somebody would tell him what he did. And then the cycle would start all over again, right? Because then he felt bad, but then he projected the blame onto us because it was easier than owning the story, right? And so then that
Right.
happens with the food. So food definitely being my drug of choice. I could see it. It was like, well, and I never really blamed anybody else, but it was my comfort. It was my
Right.
coping mechanism. And that again, like I said, I saw my mom do that. And
Yeah.
and they, again, like, they loved us. They loved us the best way they knew how. And
Mm-hmm.
here you are, reaching out to a young man there that is, this is what he wants. You'll help my mom, and you get to help him. And it's so beautiful because you're taking every aspect of your life and being able to take that literally to the streets and to serve and help other people, which
It's
is such
about
a
serving.
beautiful gift,
It's
right? I
about
mean,
serving.
I don't think there's a single one of us that has been through the neuro encoding that it isn't about service, right? We're just
That's
out
right.
there, because we know what it's like to be in the depths of despair, whatever that despair may look like, right? It could be and it varies, right, from anything from using drugs and alcohol to food to
Yeah.
gambling to you name it, and the shopping addictions, the porn, the
All of it.
whatever there is, all of it,
Yeah.
right? All of the stuff we know as a collective, and that's why we're out there. Joseph has taught us that
Mm-hmm.
we can change these things, and
Yes.
we have witnessed it, and it's like, this
And I
stuff
had a
really works.
divine intervention with God who are instantly transformed my mind. So all the
Hmm.
stepping stones of me meeting Joseph and then me meeting um,
Hmm.
Dr. Wilson and Dr. Lowry, who wrote the ketogenic Bible. May I shift this for a second? Because I
Sure,
want people to
absolutely. Yeah.
understand how, if you're type 2 diabetic, if you are having that legacy, oh, it's in my genes, my family, it's in my
Mhm.
DNA.
Yeah.
I promise you it's not. There is a component there. There is a component. So if there
Mm.
is a DNA, do you know we can change our DNA? We
We
can rewrite,
can.
not only rewrite our story mentally and emotionally and spiritually, but our DNA as well. So
Absolutely.
let's compound on that. So another individual who was in neuroencoding, they were there in Las Vegas, and I had given my testimony there. I was speaking, and um, they worked with me, and they were going to amputate his foot and his toes.
Mm.
And I told him I couldn't work with him unless his doctor was on board. Do you know, with the protocol that I gave him, individual protocol, where they were going to amputate his toes, 1 week later, his toes were healing.
Oh,
And
wow.
and all it is intermittent fasting. I teach you how to do intermittent fasting. I teach you for your body type, for who
Sure.
you are in your DNA. When you are intermittent fasting and you're abstaining from overindulging in either sweets or carbohydrates, low carb, then you can get rid of the excess sugar that's in your muscles called glycogen. All that excess sugar has nowhere to go, so it's killing your nerve endings and giving you those painful diabetic neuropathy and where people go blind. I can't reverse the blindness, but I can stop the progression by intermittent fasting, designing a meal plan, and having you drink electrolytes and other things, protocols.
Sure.
However, Corrine, there's something exciting that you don't know that just came out last week. Just came out last week. Our doctors, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Lowry, created a new technology called protocol.
Okay.
It is an 87 biomarker blood test. Do you know that when you go get your blood work done, unless you're with functional medicine, unless you are getting just some basic thyroid and
Yeah. Mhm.
PBCs but this protocol blood work will down to your DNA tell us what you're lacking. If it's vitamin A, if it's vitamin D, if it's B12, if it's any of the minerals, magnesium, all of that, zinc. This blood test is going to revolutionize a new era in metabolic health. And
Wow.
it's affordable
Yeah,
for
it's
everybody. It used
amazing.
to be elite people will get these, you have to have money.
Yeah.
Dr. Axe, he's one of my favorite doctors on YouTube. Sorry, my nose is bothering me. I decided to pay the $47 to have the hour conversation with him and his team. He was going to charge me $7,500 to have all this blood work done and then put me
Mm.
on a specific plan to help me
Sure.
have better health. And I did that I didn't know about Dr. Lowry and Wilson's new protocol. I didn't know about it. I did this last year and I'm like, I am not paying $7,500. I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
And I'm already reversing my aging. When your listeners look at my pictures, they're going to be like, there's no way that's the same person. And so this protocol is coming out probably to the public, I'd say by the end of the year or near there. And it's going to be affordable for everybody. It's amazing what these doctors have done. Not only have they created the only bioidentical ketone that matches the one we create in our liver, that puts you in ketosis in 59 minutes or less, which reaps the benefits of mental clarity and
Mhm.
autophagy. Now, this is the last thing I want to say. Intermittent fasting produces autophagy and mitophagy. Corrine, do you know what that is?
No.
All right, this is nothing to do with drinking electrolytes. This is nothing to do with drinking ketones. When you fast, God designed your body to clean house. So
Okay.
when we're not in an overfed state, which we all are, because
Yeah.
we snack, we graze, even if you're thin, you still snack, but your brain flips a switch and says, oh, okay, we get to go clean house. And all your mitochondria, all trillion of them, every cell in your body that's healthy, and the mitochondria, all it is the battery of every cell. Just like your cell
Hmm.
phone, you wouldn't let that battery die in your cell phone. You can't let
Sure.
your mitochondria die, but they do.
Sure.
And so you have all these zombie cells floating around in your body. And even though they're dead, they're still excreting poisons. And when we
Oh.
feel lethargic, when we feel like fluish or, oh, I just don't feel well, and we can't pinpoint why, we now know in science this is one of the reasons. These zombie cells need to be purged. So when you are fasting, your good mitochondria, your trillion good cells, go and eat the dead non-functioning cells, and you get rid of them. What's nice about that, autophagy, AUTOPHAGY, go to Pinterest, type it in, look
Hmm.
it up. It also will eat stage 1 cancer cells.
Okay.
And what's so beautiful about the way God designed our body, it's like we have our own self-cleaning oven. We have our own uh, Roku vacuum
Yeah.
that's computerized that goes and cleans house if we let
Hmm.
it.
Mm.
And that's what I did with that patient that was going to lose his toes. The doctor and I, we put him on 20 hours of fasting. He had a 4-hour window to eat, but he was controlled of what he ate. And monk fruit, monk fruit, monk fruit, monk fruit. Type it in Pinterest. It
Okay.
heals the pancreas all by itself. It's a sweetener,
Hmm.
not made by man. It is natural. It comes in powdered sugar, brown sugar, and granulated. You bake with it, you cook with it, and it's amazing the healing benefits of what it does. With those two
Amazing.
things, with those two things, my type 2 diabetics are having better quality of life. They're lowering their A1C. And then, of course, I do other things with them.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay a type 2 diabetic. You don't.
Can heal it. And I love that. And you have just dropped like so much gold. There's like so power packed information here in this podcast episode. Um, we didn't really touch on the spiritual healing or anything like that. But I feel like, you covered it by basically, you became a chaplain and obviously you have a deep faith. Um, and it's so important, right, to have what we have, our spiritual health and our mental health and our physical health and our emotional health, right? We can create this harmony within our life, and
Absolutely.
and then we heal, and we do have, like you mentioned, we have this body is magnificent. It's like one of my hobbies. I love to learn about the human body because it's just so incredibly fascinating to me. So thanks for helping me with my little, that's my little nerd, my little nerd thing. I
I love
love
it. Me
it.
too.
It's so fascinating to me. But what would you say is like the golden nugget? Like, what is the thing that through everything that you have been through, Shar, in this series of voyages that you have taken, what is the wisdom that you have gained and gleaned from being able to bring your secrets to light and heal the things? What would be really valuable for our listeners?
I want to give you something that's all encompassing. Hippocrates said it best. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And read your labels. There's over 100 different sugars in foods, processed foods.
Sure.
I take people grocery shopping and show them at Aldi's. what and how to read. And we stand there and I create recipes. I have people at my home. We do meal prep Mondays and
Mhm.
I do it online as well. Educate yourself. Let food be your medicine.
And educate your children. When I took my kids
Yes.
to the grocery store, that is exactly what we would do. It took long. It took longer, right? But we stood there and I would read the labels to them. And then it got to the point and I would say to them, like, if it's got more than 5 ingredients, we don't buy it. And so they learned to recognize that. And it was not too long ago. My son sent me a
I
message
love
and
it.
he's like, Mom, I'm so thankful that you took the time to teach
Yes.
us that, because what a difference it makes for them health wise. And they're all really, really good eaters and really healthy
That's
humans.
amazing.
And
There's so
and
many preservatives in our food because they want it to be shelf stable. There's actually
Mhm.
formaldehyde. A lot of
Oh
companies
yeah,
use formaldehyde in the food.
yeah,
And I'm sorry, I don't want
yeah,
formaldehyde in my veins.
yeah.
And the
Exactly.
microplastics that we eat. And
I do.
I'm
I have to share this with you because I know this gentleman that owns a funeral home, and he told me, he said that they use much less embalming fluid now than they had 2 years ago, simply because our bodies are already so preserved. But anyway,
Mhm.
we could start a whole nother side conversation. But
I
with
would love
that,
to come back
thank
because
you.
there's so
Yes,
much. I
there's
would
so
love to
much
come
more.
back.
Well, I will definitely have you back. But in the meantime, Shar, can you just tell the audience how they can get in contact with you, where they might find you?
Yes. And health is your wealth is my name, transformed by renewed mind. And I'm on Facebook, Charla Barbarita Howard Dienes. It's my full name because as soon as you type in Charla Barbarita, I pop up. And my before and after picture is there, and a little brief snippet of what I offer you. Remember, I do not charge. I do not charge. This is my ministry. God healed me, my mind, my spirit. I'm walking. He healed me inside and out. And so for me, I want my son and God to cheer me
Mm,
running my race louder than a full football stadium of fans cheering.
yeah,
I want
amazing.
them to be proud. And so for
Mm,
me, there's a lot of coaches out there that charge, and I do not. I give you everything. I give you my all. I do require you buy the electrolytes. I do require that you
yeah,
follow the plan and the protocol. And with this new blood test coming up, please search me out. I
it's
work with
amazing.
brides. I work with all aspects of life. I work with your mental health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Shar, for being on the Secret Keepers.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorrineZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.